let's kick this thing off with the proportions comparison of the two figures. We've got Hot Toys on the left, we've got INART on the right. There's definitely details, we'll get into that a little bit, but let's look at the proportions first. Let's look at the shoulders, proportions down to the waist. And we see on the Hot Toys on the left, his torso, the way they've molded it is pretty rectangular, it's pretty square. Whereas on the INART one, it's more of a V taper, which is typically what you see with superheroes. You typically see broad shoulders, small waist. It shows off the pectoral muscles and the broad shoulders and, you know, the crime fighting stuff. And it's just how it is. On the Hot Toys one, it looks like they just used a typical standard true type body, which is probably what they did. And then he's got padding on there, and they didn't tailor it to the actual body. They added a fat suit or some padding or whatever under the suit. Whereas with INART, they're specifically designing bodies for each figure, and you can tell the difference here. I mean, it's night and day, no pun intended. There is a difference. So if we zoom in, maybe you can get a little bit better look. I mean, you can just see the gap between the elbows, and I tried to put them in as close of the same pose as I possibly could. And there are some differences in that. We'll talk about in a little bit. But the proportions, I think, are better on the INART one. The Hot Toys one's not bad. I just prefer the one on the INART as far as proportions go. Now, while we're looking at this is an interesting note that when I was posing the INART one, interchanging the hands, they've got that magnetic. It still have a 6-scale peg, but it also has the magnets in the hands. And one of the things I noticed is a difference in the actual hand. So I'm going to try and zoom in on the actual hands here. And you'll notice, maybe you won't notice, but I'm going to tell you, the Hot Toys hands are just the hand itself that go down pretty much to the wrist bone, whereas the INART one actually has the gauntlet style continuance of the glove. So it looks, on appearance wise, it looks like the INART one has longer hands compared to the Hot Toys one. And when I put them side by side, I was like, okay, yeah, I didn't notice that when I originally, did the review on the Hot Toys one, that he didn't really have that extra material on the hand, whereas the INART one does. Again, I don't know which one's more accurate. I have no idea. It's just something I noticed. And it does make his hands look a little long. His arm, I guess his entire arm on the INART one looks like it has a longer appearance. And we're talking like, like not even quite a centimeter. It's just ever so slightly there. And you could, I suppose, bring the gauntlet down and cover up the hand. That could be a thing. You might want to do that. But there is a difference in the actual mold of the hands for that. So that's kind of interesting that they're different. Why are they different? I don't know. Which one's more accurate? I don't know. So let's take a look at the upper section, the upper chest area. So obviously we've got a difference in material, and you can see it in the midsection, the torso, ab section, I guess, if you will. The INART one the material looks ever so slightly more crisp. Like the folds of the padding look more crisp. They're more clean. And you can see that in the shadows of it. Whereas the Hot Toys one is more rounded. It's not quite as crisp, not quite as tailored, I guess, if you will. And guys, I'm being super nitpicky, but that's what you guys asked for. So we're doing that. So I'm being super nitpicky. That is a difference. And I don't know which one's scaled properly. The INART one padding pieces appear to be scaled differently than the Hot Toys one. Again, which one's more accurate? I don't know. And honestly, I really don't care. I'm just notating the differences here. But there is a difference there. And you can obviously see a difference in the coloration. So there's no question about that one. The INART one is a lighter gray, whereas the Hot Toys one's a little bit darker. And I think that's just a preference thing. Color grading, depending on if they, what scene they took inspiration from, or however they wanted to do that. The batarang, I guess, if you will, they're pretty similar, both of them. They're both magnetic. They both stick into the chest plate. That sticks just fine. The chest plate on the INART one, I do prefer. It. The Hot Toys one has the straps that go behind the back. They're attached to the actual chest plate, where the batarang is. And the INART one does not. And I prefer that one. I think it has a better look, personally. It's just one of those things. But I think both of them look pretty good. The slight edge to tailoring and crispness has got to go to INART. I wasn't planning on adding this in here, but I'm going to. We're going to compare the head sculpts on the Batman figures. They're two vastly different. And obviously, I have the rooted hair of the INART version and the sculpted hair for Hot Toys because they didn't do a rooted one. But who knows? Maybe they'll do an artisan one in the future. I mean, it's Hot Toys, but who the hell knows? These two look great. I think some people have mentioned that the INART scaling head, the scaling is too small for the body. I don't think that's the case. I think the Hot Toys one may be scaled up and a little too large. So hear me out on that. And you're looking at the difference between a sculpted hair that's fixed on the Hot Toys versus rooted hair. It lies more flat. You got that going on. There is no doubt that they are different sizes. I mean, there's no question about that. The lighter tone of the INART version may be playing into that a little bit as well. But if you look at the neck area of the figures, there's more room to be had on the INART version versus the Hot Toys version. And on mine, the Hot Toys one, I literally can't even get the head pegged into the neck. I can't. It won't do it. I shared that on the review, a couple months back. So there's side by side. Preference to me, I think the INART one's more accurate. I think the dimensions, I think the face shape's more accurate. I think the scale's more accurate. And honestly, it just looks good. All right, am I going to use it? No, I'm not. I'm going to use the cowl. I think it's Batman. I'm going to use it with a cowl. But I'm happy to show this to you guys. You can decide which one you like better. Again, if you didn't have one or the other side by side, you would be pleased with whichever one is in your collection. How many times I can say that? I do believe the INART one's more accurate. I do believe the INART one is more premium, for lack of a better word, and they charge for that. But again, if you already own the Hot Toys one, enjoy it. Taking a close look at the belts, they are definitely scaled differently. I feel like the Hot Toys one, the pouches, that's the word I was looking for, the pouches. I feel like the Hot Toys pouches ones were not scaled correctly. Like they just don't seem to match the rest of the suit. Like they just don't seem to match all that great. Not a deal breaker, it's just something you notice. When you look to the INART one on the right, and I was talking about the two pouches that are on his right, you're looking at your left, those two side-by-side ones. And it appears that the Hot Toys one is just overscaled slightly. Again, I'm being super nitpicky, guys, but it's just one of those things. And you look at the coloration. On the INART one, the belt really does match the suit color like very well. The weathering, the wash, everything like that. Whereas the Hot Toys one, it's definitely there's more contrast there. I think you can see that on camera. There's more contrast there between the black, like almost police style belt, military style belt that he's got going on versus the INART one, which more accurately, I think more closely matches the actual color tone gradients of the actual suit material behind it. Let's take a look at the side holster for the sticky dart gun. This is where I think Hot Toys actually has a little bit of an advantage on the INART one. For me, the INART one, the way you attach the sticky dart gun into it, there's two elastic bands that you need to put it on, and it feels a little loose to me. I think Hot Toys is going to take the win on that one. Scale-wise, I think they both work. I think they're both fine. But the way the final appearance on the Hot Toys one seems more like the gun's not gonna fall out. On the INART one, it's not gonna fall either because you got two elastic bands, so it's not going anywhere. It just seems more finished on that one. Which one's more accurate again? You tell me. All right, let's take a look at these gauntlets. They're definitely different, no question about it. The paint application is different. The scale of the weaponry is different. They're just different. Again, you got to pick which one you like better than the other. Doesn't matter to me, honestly. But they're definitely different. And the question is, why are they different? Why? I don't know the answer to that, but why are they different? If they both companies got the same information from Warner Brothers, why are they different? So it appears INART is taking the time, and I'm talking like the little, I don't even know what they're called, the three parts that come off of the gauntlet, whereas INART's taking the time to brush the end plates of those in the more light gray, whereas Hot Toys went pretty much just all black plastic. INART, it appears to me, has taken the time to go do the extra details, where INART went mass production and said, nah, this is good enough. That's what it looks like to me. Going down to the bicep armor, Again, we've got differences here. INART's taking time to do a little bit more weathering and wash going on there, and it may not be showing up on camera exactly because of the lighting, but it is there. Scaling wise, they both look pretty accurate. The color of the yellow-orange color looks pretty much the same to me. However, if you go up to the shoulder armor, now that's a different story. Shoulder armor is definitely different on either one of them, right? So here's, I guess I can just keep this side by side. You can see it right there. The coloration on the INART one, again, more matches the suit, whereas on the Hot Toys one, it's pretty much black, and it's got little inserts of gray, but not quite the same, right? More weathering, more wash on the INART one. The scaling on the INART one feels more accurate. It feels like it's better proportion that we talked about earlier. And again, me nitpicking, but that's what I'm seeing. Regarding the boots, well, they both look just fine to me. There's definitely a coloration difference, which we've talked about before. INART's matches the suit. Hot Toys are black. They do have weathering on them, but it is that. Turn around the back, you can definitely see a difference here in just the detail. Obviously, the coloration of the suit we've seen multiple times. I think here it makes even more apparent that it's different. And then we kind of get into some of the detail, like the paracord work on the Hot Toys one. It's mainly molded. Actually, it's all molded, I guess it is. And then on the INART, as you can see, it's a finer detail. Even going down to the zippers and the stitch work is just finer on the INART one, right? So there's that. Is there one more accurate than the other? I don't know. I will tell you, Hot Toys wins the battle of the belt attachments. The fact that INART's belt has to be installed on the figure, I think that's not cool. And the buckle system on INART's is more of a pain because you actually have to tighten it like you would a backpack and then tuck that extra strap into the pant. I don't like that. I think Velcro would have been just fine. I think the way Hot Toys attached their belt and the fact that it came on the figure itself, I think they win the battle of the belts as far as installation. You can see it's definitely a difference. I think INART went with more accuracy. I mean, I get it. I get why they did it. So I guess if that's the level of detail you're aiming for, then maybe they win for you. But the Velcro is just way easier. And then going down to the back of the pant, you can see this difference in cut and sew and coloration. Outside of that, I don't really know the whole lot to write home about. On this one, they both have the thigh holster on the right. They've got the straps going around the shins. For the other armor, it's fine. You're not really going to look at this side of them anyways. Now, this might be a point of contention. Some people are going to say I like one or the other, and that's fine. I don't know that, whatever, it's fine. We're comparing two different figures from two different companies. So the head sculpt on the Cowl. So we're going to look at the Cowl sculpt because the rooted hair INART figure, to compare it to the sculpted hair, that would make any sense. But the Cowl is where it's at. So you can tell a difference in the skin tone right off the bat. The INART one is more pale. It's more or less saturated. The Hot Toys one is more saturated with more orange hues and tans, whereas the INART one's more pale. Now, which one's more accurate? I feel like the INART one's more accurate on the coloration on that one. But if you did not have them side by side, I don't think you would care one way or the other. It's just when you put them side by side, you go, okay, yeah, it kind of stands out. But if you had one on your shelf versus the other, I doubt you'd ever notice it. Jawline, Hot Toys has a stronger jaw. No doubt about it. It does have a stronger jaw. The INART one, I think the INART one's more accurate. Like Pattinson doesn't, he's not, I don't know. It seems like it's more accurate. The Hot Toys one seems more rounded on the top of the dome versus the INART one seems more elongated. And the Hot Toys one appears to be a little bit more wide in the back. Like it's more of an oblong kind of shape. The back of this cowl is wider than the front. Whereas on the INART one, it seems it doesn't seem that way. And I know cameras and lenses and distortion, all that kind of stuff. But in person, I'm looking at it right now, and that's what I'm seeing. So, one's better than the other, so be it. If you didn't have either one of them, if you had one on your shelf and not the other one, I think you'd be just fine. But these are the differences I'm seeing. Paint applications-wise, INART wins this one. They win it. I think the accuracy to the sculpt on the lower jaw And the fact that he's got blue eyes, I think that matters. I think INART wins on that one as well. However, I do like Hot Toys' magnetic head attachment. I do like that. So I'm gonna give them the points on that one as well. I do like that. Range of motion, posing, all that kind of stuff. I like that. And the magnetic neck doesn't interfere with the moving of the eyes. When sometimes on the INART one, the way they've attached it, sometimes it can. So Hot Toys has a better attachment mechanism for the sculpt or the cowl. INART, I think, has got a more accurate cowl. So let's take a look at the range of motion. We got the Hot Toys one on the left again, INART on the right, and let's just kind of, let's see what we got for range of motion here. Now, I was mentioned earlier, we do have the magnetic head on the Hot Toys version, which allows you to do a lot of things like this, even though there's a gap. There's an unsightly gap there, but maybe you want a dynamic pose and you want that feature. Obviously, it'll do whatever you want to do there. So looking up pretty far, looking down, again, you're going to run into, that's about as far down as it's going to go, but looking left, or, I mean, that he looks like he got a broke neck. You're going to do that anyways, but there's that. On the INART version, if you pull this guy over here, you get a decent range of motion up. Not quite the same because it is actually, you've got this section here versus just a regular magnet going on here. But he can look down a good bit more because we don't have to worry about the magnet losing connection to the actual head. And then left and right, no issues with that whatsoever. So pretty good range of motion on both. Just a different way of going about it. Comparing the two head sculpts, we've got obviously Hot Toys on the left, INART on the right. You can see the difference in paint application. It's pretty significant. The expressions are very similar, but you can see there's definitely a difference on the two as far as the tone. Like obviously the INART one's much lighter, so there's those guys. But as far as the cowls go, they look pretty freaking similar. Like I said earlier, I believe I'm gonna try to do this. It's kind of not the easiest way to do this, but the cowl on the Hot Toys one, if you look at the back of the head, like back here where my fingers are, you can see more of it. It's more bulbous, I guess, if you will, than the INART one. There's that. Now, if we change out the mouth plates, again, both are magnetic. We can kind of make this happen. Let's go to the little angry one here. I got you, and then we'll go to the angry one on this one. The way they attach is essentially the same on both. And now we've got the angry one on both. So INART on your right, Hot Toys on your left. Which one do you prefer? I think it's just personal preference. I'm not sure one's better or worse than the other. I think just in person, I'm liking this one a little bit better, but that's what I'm seeing in person. And then we can change out one final mouth plate, which is like the slightly opened one. Got you on there all the way. I mean, they change out very easily regardless. And then we got you. And then here we go. So there's your comparisons of all the mouth parts, mouth plates, and the cowl. Again, they both did a fantastic job. If one more accurate than the other, who's to say? Let's talk about range of motion of the bodies. If we're going to do that, we can check out the elbow first. We got a little bit of bend. Pretty good bend right here. But yeah, you run into the armor. If I push it just a touch, you can get a little bit further than that. That's actually pretty good on the Hot Toys one. The INART one, again, I'm going to try and do the same arm. But it appears like the armor is just a little less in the way. And you can see the double bend going right there. So you get a little bit more range of motion out of it, although it is ever so slight. And it's not even really worth mentioning, but it is there. There is a difference there. Moving on to shoulder-wise. I have noticed on my INART, I don't have it pegged in all the way, but we'll get that out of the way. As far as shoulder-wise, we kind of get this guy, the INART-wise, goes up about that far, where the Hot Toys one, it's pretty similar. I mean, it's pretty similar as far as that goes. Rotation-wise, they're both going to be about the same. And I got to fix the Velcro on this one. It's going to go forward a little bit more. If I work the material inside the suit, I think I can get a little bit more rotation on the Hot Toys one if I tried, but I really don't want to go breaking things. I'm going to try not to do that. If I rotate the shoulder on this guy, yeah, it's not bad at all, actually. So they're very similar in that respect. There's your double bend there. And we've got our butterfly joint here. So plenty of range of motion on there. No issues whatsoever. Yeah, kind of dig that. So your joints down here, yeah, no issues. Now torso. Now this is interesting. I'm gonna pop the head off of here and pop the head off here because I don't want them to go crazy. The belt on mine I need to tighten, but we talked about that earlier in the video. There is padding in here. This is the INART version, right? There is padding in there. And as far as ab crunch goes, there's not a whole lot going on there. There's some, not a lot. Torso twist, there's a decent amount. Like that's pretty good amount of torso twist. Like that's pretty strong on the INART one. On the Hot Toys one, ab crunch again, less. All right, so there's not a lot on the INART one, but the Hot Toys one is definitely less, no doubt about it. And then torso twists, I mean, it's not even a fair comparison. It's really not. It's not even close. It's not even close. Like this was, you're going to get way more torso twist out of this than the Hot Toys version. So INART's going to win that battle. As far as the legs go, Hot Toys one's going to split about that far. INART, a little more range of motion there. It's like the pants are a little bit more forgiving. Double bend on the knee for the INART version, and a double bend on the knee for the Hot Toys version. So they're all pretty good on that. So, I mean, essentially very similar. However, there is more range of motion on the INART body. And again, they designed this body specifically for this figure. This isn't a reused True Type body that Hot Toys is using. This is a newly designed body for this particular purpose. So outside of just cosmetic differences and appearances, the body itself appears to be better suited for the application versus Hot Toys using a generic body. Don't get me wrong, this does get the job done. It does look great on the shelf. Like I did a review of this and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I still do. But it is different than this one. You know, it's just how it is. Range of motion on the boots are about the same. It's not really much to write home about that. The biggest difference here is going to be the width of the shoulders, the width of the waist, and then a range of motion going on here. Pretty nice altogether. I have had my grappling gun attachment that pegs into the gauntlet. It does pop out. It goes in fairly easily, so that's not too big a deal. There's 3 pegs right there, but mine pops out kind of just randomly as I'm trying to pose it. And it's probably me just manhandling this thing, but, you know, something noteworthy. Now, I mentioned earlier, I don't know if I showed it all that well. I'm going to try and do this here since we got top-down camera here. Let me not switch sides. INART on the right, Hot Toys on the left, the gauntlet. These little sections right here, we've got silver bits versus the Hot Toy one, which is just straight up plastic. I don't know if I was able to show that all that great last time or the previous clip. But there is a notable difference there. And then what I said earlier on the hands, whereas the Hot Toy hand is essentially just that, the INART one is, well, I guess I can show you this. It's more, you get a little bit more material on the end. So there's that, more of a gauntlet style, I guess, glove. All right, we have a tale of 2 capes. Hot Toys on the left, INART on the right. So here's what we got going on, all kinds of fun stuff. So one, appearance-wise, this one has more gloss to it versus this one. The Hot Toys one's got a lot more paint applications going on, going a little higher up. So as we go down here, and I don't know how well that's going to show up, but there's more weathering on the upper end of the cape versus this guy. And this is the wired cape from Hot Toys, the wired cape from INART. So just throwing that out there. But as far as the material goes, here's just straight up size difference. There's Hot Toys, and here is INART. Here, actually, I can just put the Hot Toys ones inside the INART one. There you go. Right, it's straight up. The INART one is large, no doubt about it. Again, we're talking about the wired cape. As far as the wires go, we had 6 wires on here. We've got 1, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wires, same number of wires. Interior of it, you've got speckling and weathering on the inside of the Hot Toys one. The INART one is clean. I don't know why it's clean, but it is. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that is what it is. It's a much larger cape. Now, there's going to be a question whether or not the wires for the INART version are going to be able to hold a crazy dynamic pose, and they're going to be able to do some pose, but this material's got some weight to it, which is not really going to lend itself to like, you know, crazy flying poses. There is some decent wires in here, but they could be stronger. But I feel like because we only got one cape with him, the INART version, that if the wires were too strong, it might have affected the drape look. So it would have been nice to have a drape cape and then a wire cape that actually is pretty strong. This one right here weighs less. Like there's less weight to this. So I feel like you can get some more, it wants to fight gravity a little better just because it weighs less. All right, let's talk about these capes and posing. So we've got Hot Toys on the left, INART on the right. Now, I realize that the Hot Toys pose for the cape is ridiculous. I understand that. I did that on purpose. So don't roast me in the comment section. Because of the size of the Hot Toys one being smaller, I could not actually duplicate the pose that I did on the right. Now, I posed the INART one first, and then I said, well, let me see if I can duplicate that with the Hot Toys one. I can't because the capes are different sizes, so there's that. But I did want to show that the Hot Toys cape, being smaller, will stand up on its own. Like, it's a ridiculous pose. There's no way in hell I would display our Pat-Man like this because it looks stupid. But I wanted to show like the strength of the wires, the lighter weight material they use for the cape, and you can get it in some silly poses if you wanted to. Now, that being said, the INART one is wider. Right, you can see it right there. It is wider. It's not, the wires are not as strong, or maybe the wires are as strong. There's just the extra weight in the material. I'm not sure what. Maybe it's a balance of the two, but it is different, and they do different things. So it just depends on what your desired pose is with that. Now, I will tell you, of the two, as it sits, I prefer the INART cape. I like the larger size. I think that's where it is. I think the width of it. It leads itself to a little bit more, what's the word of it? Presence, right? That's kind of I'm thinking. And look at this. Look at that sculpt. And it just looks badass. And you can get the head on it because it's not magnetized like the Hot Toys one. You can get the chin more closer to the chest than you can with the Hot Toys one. The Hot Toys one over the left, you really can't, it doesn't look right? It just doesn't, it's different, all right? Now, again, you might have a preference one or the other, whatever. It's just different. Now, I am using dynamic stands from Hot Toys because INART didn't include one, so there's that. And so we do have that going on. But do you have a preference? As it sits currently, the INART cape, due to the width of it, I think it has more shelf presence. The Hot Toys wins on the ability to do crazy, wild, wonderful, silly things like this. So we got a pose here, and I want to give you just an idea what these might look side by side, posed similarly. Obviously, the previous pose, not very, I mean, it was somewhat similar, not really. And here he is. And I think the INART wider cape works better. Now, I've seen some people complain, because that's what they do, or maybe it's not a complaint, maybe it's an observation, that the INART cape is longer, meaning going to the floor lower than the prototype or even lower than the screen-used piece. And I think they had a number of different ones. I don't know. It does appear to be longer than the prototype cape in one of the photos I saw. However, the photos I saw of Pattinson on set did appear to be, it appears to be accurate, honestly. I think the prototype was inaccurate, is what I'm trying to say. So there's that. Now, how wide it is, I don't freaking know. I never really saw any shots of that or anything like that. But I will tell you, I do prefer the INART cape to the Hot Toys cape. I do that. And I honestly, there's pretty much everything I prefer the INART version we have here to the Hot Toys version. It pretty much in almost everywhere, except for the belt being attached that you have to add. I don't really like that. But here's the Hot Toys one. I mean, you can see the difference in just the coloration, the way the black has a little bit of a gloss to it, a little bit of sheen to it. It looks less, it looks more toy-like. I guess there's that. I mean, you can see just the differences there versus the INART one over here. They're just different. And when you got them side by side, they're really different. And like I said earlier, if you have one or the other, there's some things you're just not going to notice, right? You're just not going to. You bump that back up. Got a little dark there for a second. There's just things you're just not going to notice. It just is the suit, the material, the coloration, the mobility. I mean, you can look at it here, like the mobility in the torso. If you look at the Hot Toys one, like that's as much twist as I can get, and it's not much twist at all. Like not much at all. Versus here, if I wanted to push that even more, I could. You can see from the chest emblem to the belt, like that orientation, I could get a lot more than that if I wanted to, but I wanted to put these two side by side. That way you could see, a fair comparison. The INART one is just more maneuverable. The suit material is thinner. It doesn't have the fat suit underneath it, like hindering it. There's that. And then there's the difference in posing the head, but because the INART one has that neck adapter deal going on, you get a little bit more range of motion for the double joint, I guess, if you will, versus the magnets here, where that's pretty much the maximum I could push that head on the Hot Toys body without it just falling off because the magnet's just not strong enough to support it. So there's that. There's that. There's other differences, but for the sake of this video, like that's what you need to know. You can make your decision which one you like better. For me, INART wins all day long. It's not even a fair fight. That being said, INART one costs more, and that's a fact. That's something you got to factor in. It just is. You might go, hey, look, the Hot Toys one, I own it. It's great, and for me, that's fine. For the money I spent on it, got good value of it. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. The INART one, I believe, is more accurate. It's definitely better, more posable, and it's definitely more detailed. I mean, there's just no denying that. You guys saw it in the footage, but you got to decide which one you like or don't like, and where to put your own money. That's that. If you want to get either one of these, check out Pop Collectibles. Link in the description below if you want to do that. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. If you would like to see a posing video of the INART Batman, which you probably do, let me know in the comment section down below. We'll just do a straight up posing video. Should be a lot of fun. As always, click or do like. See you next time.